Hey, what's going on there guys, Mike here, and in today's video I'm going to break down a recent opening cinematic trailer that was released for Dark Souls 3, as well as speculate and give my theories on some recent screenshots that were released a couple weeks back. So let's go ahead and get right down to it.
Yes, indeed. It is called Lothric, where the transitory lands of the Lords of Cinder converge. In venturing north, the pilgrims discover the truth of the old words.
Alright, so we got a lot of information from that first opening part, the first being the setting of our new game called Lothric. Now, they've seemed to have done away with the original name they had back for Dark Souls 3 when they first announced the game called, I believe, Lodolith. Aside from that, the setting for Dark Souls 1 was called Loredron. The setting for the second game was called Drangleic. Now we have Lothric. Now, what's familiar and similar about all three of these areas is that they actually take place on the exact same continent, the exact same plot of land up in the north. The only difference is they take place over expanded amounts of time. Who knows how long, whether it be years, decades, centuries, who knows how long. Another interesting part that they mentioned is that the Lords of Cinder. Now, the main plot of Dark Souls 3 is that we ourselves, the player character, is taking on and defeating the Lords of Cinder. Now, who are the Lords of Cinder? Well, if you've played and beaten Dark Souls 1, you've actually fought the very first Lord of Cinder called Lord Gwyn. Now, Lord Gwyn at one point was strong as fuck. He was an extremely powerful soul. In fact, he split his soul several times, giving part of it to Sate the Scaleless, and another part to the Four Kings of New Londo. Now, what he chose to do with the rest of his soul was go and link the fire. Now, what linking the fire does is it prevents the Age of Darkness from coming in, aka the Age of Man. Whatever this age is, this new age, this age of darkness, this age of man, the gods fear. Lord Gwyn especially fears it, and he doesn't want it to happen. Why exactly? It's never exactly made clear, but nonetheless he wants to prevent it. Now, the thing about linking the fire is no matter how great your soul is that it's never a permanent fix. Eventually, one day the fire fades, and it requires a new soul to satiate that same fire. Dark Souls 2 expanded upon that lore, insinuating that we were in a never-ending cycle, with each cycle ending with a new great soul linking the fire, aka our player characters sitting on the throne of want. Now, I believe this trailer is hinting that we ourselves will be taking on each and every individual ones of those Lord of Cinder throughout each of those cycles. I'll expand more upon that as the trailer goes on, but I want to hint at the next part that they reveal. I want to touch a little bit upon these people that are walking across the desert. Now, originally I thought these were like water hags, sort of like Malentia from Dark Souls 2. But now the closer I looked, and after some recent concept art, I'm now starting to believe that they may in fact be clerics on pilgrimage to the land of the north. If you look at this recent concept art, the shells on the back look very similar to it. Go ahead and let me know what you think down below.
Fire fades, and the lords go without thrones. When the link of fire is threatened, the bell tolls, unearthing the old Lords of Cinder from their graves.
Alright, so allow me to analyze and theorize on that last part that we just heard. When the link of fire is threatened, bells toll, unearthing the old Lords of Cinder from their graves. Now, that's not just a normal thing that happens. Bells don't just toll and all of the Lords of Cinder from the past just rise up from their graves. Something new is happening. Now, when they say the link of the fire is threatened, I don't think they mean the one of this cycle, but I think they mean the cycle itself is being threatened or derailed in some sort of way. That same cycle that they introduced to Dark Souls 2 that repeats itself over and over with a new monarch each and every time is somehow in some way being disrupted, whether it be by a player character, some sort of outside force, or a combination of both. But I think what we are witnessing here is a contingency plan, a final effort to put the cycle back on its course if all else fails. Or perhaps the Age of Darkness is finally inevitable, and there is absolutely no way to prevent it from coming with or without a new Lord of Cinder or a new monarch. That's a pretty scary thought for the people who live in the world of Dark Souls. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and move on with the trailer because my favorite part of it is coming up and I really want to delve into it.
Aldrich, Saint of the Deep.
Aldrich, Saint of the Deep. Now, I'm not going to bullshit you here. When I first saw this creature, this monster just ooze his way out of the coffin like so, I instantly thought of the purple sludge Pokemon Muck. Now, maybe that's what they were going for, maybe not, but that's what it looked like to me in a way. Because I know From Software is going to put him in an area where there's like poison and toxic and a whole bunch of fuckery to fuck with the player. Another interesting thing about his name is he calls himself Saint of the Deep. Now, I haven't heard the word Saint in a Souls-based game since the game Demon Souls. Now, what's interesting about that, though, is there was another faith-based character in Demon Souls named May Lestrea, and she had a royal bodyguard named Garl Vinland. And they traveled to the Valley of Defilement, which is the poison, toxic-filled area of that game. They went there with the intention on curing and ultimately rectifying that area and trying to help the people that lived there. Ultimately, they failed, but nonetheless, they went there with good intentions. So I wonder if this character, this Aldrich of the Deep, has a similar story. Maybe he went to some dark, deep, poison gas-filled place with the intention of good and was somehow corrupted by it. Let's go on to the next one.
Farron's Undead Legion, the Abyss Watchers.
Farron's Undead Legion, the Abyss Watchers. This by far was my favorite part of the entire trailer. But it does leave me with a couple of questions. Number one, who the hell is Farron? Is that a person, a general, or some sort of commander of some sort? Or is that a country? And number two, why did they feel the need to assign an entire legion of badass soldiers, all rocking great swords of Artorias, to watch the Abyss? Was it really coming back at such a rate that they needed an entire legion to keep the darkness at bay? To stand guard and watch and make sure that nothing happened? I mean, my mind is just racing at how awesome this battle with them could potentially be. I imagine it's going to be somewhere along the lines of a crossover between the four kings from Dark Souls 1 and potentially the Knights of Ilium Lois from the Crown of the Old Ivory King from Dark Souls 2, where one or two of them will jump down at first and fight you, and depending on how long you take, the third one will jump down, the fourth one will jump down, and the fifth one will jump down. You could potentially be fighting all five at the same exact time. Or who the hell knows? Now in Dark Souls, all five of them could gank you at the same damn time. You really don't know at this point.
And the reclusive lord of the profaned capital. Yon the giant.
I don't really have much to say about Yorm the Giant other than the fact that he looks like a spitting image from the Giant Lord from Dark Souls 2. The only tad bit that I find interesting is that they called him the Reclusive Lord of the Profane Capital. Now, who's Profane Capital? From his own country? His own continent? Or is it the Profane Capital of Aldrich? And secondly, they call him the Reclusive Lord, which means he keeps to himself. He prefers the life of solitude. Now, what exactly does that mean? Who the hell knows? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Only in truth, the lords will abandon their thrones. And the unkindled will rise. Nameless, accursed undead, unfit even to be cinder. And so it is that ash seeketh embers.
Alright, so that pretty much wraps it up for the trailer itself. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my final thoughts, speculation, and information on the game so far. Lastly, it says that the lords will abandon their thrones. Well, I think it's pretty obvious why they're going to do that. They're trying to stop us, the player character, aka the Unkindled. What is the purpose of the Unkindled? Well, other than to defeat the Lords of Cinder, I think our purpose is finally to usher in the Age of Dark, aka the Age of Man. The main reason behind this is because I've heard that this is the final part in the Dark Souls series, so this is the final number. Not to say that this is the last Souls game, but it is the last of the Dark Souls series. And it would seem a little redundant if we linked the fire again, because that would simply start the cycle all over again, so I think our purpose this time around is finally to put a definitive end to the Age of Fire and bring in and usher in the Age of Dark. Now, what of this woman that's putting on this crown? Well, she actually does have a purpose. She is the Maiden of Firelink Shrine. Now, those of you who have played Dark Souls 1, Firelink Shrine may ring a bell. Pun intended. Is it the same Firelink Shrine from Dark Souls 1? More than likely, no. Too much time has passed now. Does it take place on the same plot of land as Dark Souls 1 did? It very well could be. We'll have to wait and see. Now anyway, the purpose of this maiden is quite simple. Just like the Maiden in Black from Demon Souls and the Emerald Herald from Dark Souls 2, she's going to be the one that levels you up. Also, as the story progresses, she'll give you key plot points and certain narrative instruction. There are several other NPCs throughout Firelink Shrine that have been revealed so far, but I don't really want to give them away here in this video. They are out there though if you want to seek out the information. I'll probably put it in the description below. Also, before you can actually arrive at Firelink Shrine, you must actually go through a tutorial boss known as Gundyr the Judge. Now, Gundyr the Judge, which I found very interesting about him, is that earlier in 2015, a screenshot was shown of Gundyr, or at least a judge that looked just like him in a different area. Now, what exactly does this mean? There are multiple judges throughout the game? More than likely, no. Most times in the Souls series, the first boss or a tutorial boss will often appear later on in the game as just a normal enemy or a sub-boss. This could very well be the same case right here and now. And lastly, I wanted to point out this picture, this castle, this city in the sky. A more recent picture shows that it could just very well be the old dragon shrine from Dark Souls 2. Earlier in 2015, they released this other photo that showed this heavenly mansion, this heavenly castle up in the sky. Now, back when that was first released, I said that that could potentially have been where the gods of old went, such as Guinevere and Flame God Flan. Now, I would desperately hope that that's true, because I would love to fight Flame God Flan and see what the hell he's about, but only time will tell. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Go ahead and leave down any comments, any information you have down below. Dark Souls 3 is less than about 6 weeks away from Japan, I think 8 weeks here in the US, and my hype cannot be any more high right now. So I do have a few more videos on the way, so until next time, bye.